So Sean Strickland is saying that UFC dropped the ball with the upcoming fight against Israel Adesanya for the title September 10th, Australia. And it's a very interesting narrative that's been spun, and it's going off in a couple of different directions. And I'm going to kind of follow the path here and try to unravel what has been said and what has actually transpired in the last week. Because I think Chael has a hand in this. Dricus du Plessis, I think, is orchestrating the entire dance. And I'll give you my explanation about how that's actually happening. But before I do, I guess we'll look at what Chael is saying, what Sugar Sean O'Malley is saying, what Israel is saying. And to be honest with you, this looks absolutely terrible for the UFC. It lacks organization. It lacks cohesion. I think we're 6 weeks out from the main card in Australia and there's no one there to fight. It's an extremely interesting one, but we'll get into it. Before we do, if you could hit like, subscribe, and share. I've been looking at the analytics, and apparently liking the video makes it more recommendable by YouTube. So if you could do that for me, I'd really appreciate it. Cheers. So there's a nice little bit to dig into here. We have some tweets from Sean Strickland last night defending Dricus du Plessis and the fact that he's not ready and he's not willing to put everything on the line with a 6-week turnaround. And that's interesting because some of the biggest MMA commentators are kind of putting that as a slight against Dricus du Plessis, like he's a coward. And they're even going as far as to say that Israel has already won. I don't know how I feel about that, because it was Chael Sonnen that said it, and I do like Chael Sonnen, but again, there's a lot of dick riding going on in terms of Izzy, as they like to call him. I like to call him the arse-bender. You know, Sugar Sean O'Malley's falling out of his pants to talk about how Israel is the best champion the UFC has ever seen. In a previous video, we saw how Chael constructed the narrative of Israel Adesanya is overtaking Conor McGregor in terms of being the biggest superstar in the UFC. This was like 3 days after he went and dropped the M-bomb 100 times inside in the octagon and actually looked like someone who was mentally ill. That's not me being hyperbolic. The dude looked damaged and he looked scared and he looked like something wasn't right. Dricus du Plessis, who according to Ariel Helwani just can't make the turnaround because of a foot injury, I believe. Chael didn't take too kindly to that news. Let's have a little listen and see what he thinks.
5 guys in history that could have dealt with that guy. No way. High praise. I mean it. I mean it to be high praise. But then a face-off happened. And the moment the face-off happened, things changed.
And I'm going to pause it there because I will dip in and out of this video because there's a few other interesting bits, and there's a few other interesting bits in another video that I'll pull out as well. When you watch the video in totality, you will come to the understanding that Chael believes that Dricus was all for this fight. And after a face-off with Israel Adesanya, who looked mentally unhinged inside in the octagon, who has lost, I would say, hundreds of thousands of supporters. I haven't seen this much of a fall off in the fans or the support since Paddy Pimblett got broke up against Jared Gordon. In the aftermath of that, Chael has come out and backed Izzy's corner and said that he is bigger than Conor McGregor. And now he's saying that after Dricus saw the mammoth beast that was Israel Adesanya standing in front of him, something changed. And now all of a sudden, he's out of the fight. This is exactly the narrative that's been spun in this video from Chael Sonnen. I shit you not.
And there's a video. They're talking to him. They're talking to him about Adesanya. So they asked du Plessis about what's next, which was just set up for him, which was Adesanya, which is a very rare occurrence. He was put in a really great spot. And you want to know what he said? It was an honor being in the octagon with Robert Whittaker. But I'm telling you what was, and as soon as I said, okay, things are changing here, we're losing him. We're losing him. He's slipping.
So let's just jump in there with this, right? So Dricus du Plessis, who nobody gave a chance in hell, everyone across the board thought that he was going to get wiped out by Robert Whittaker, went in there and starched him, put him out cold, looked absolutely unbelievably beastly, and just panned him out, right? Fair enough. The adrenaline is flying hard. We have Joe Rogan, we have the crowd is screaming. Dricus is all hyped up after this fight. Biggest win of his career. They stick Israel Adesanya in there. We already knew the backstory where they were going back and forth in terms of Israel having an absolute racist meltdown against him online. Fine, fair enough. So we stick him there. There's a face-off. The hype is through the roof. Dricus certainly didn't think, I don't believe, that Israel was going to enter the octagon and do what he did in terms of being mentally ill and kind of psychotic. You can imagine the emotions were flying everywhere. What's he going to actually say when they're face-to-face or the seconds after that interaction? Is he going to say, actually, the adrenaline is so high with the biggest win of my career, I don't know whether I've injured something? Is he going to talk like that? No, he's not. Of course he isn't. The emotions were all over the place and he was ready to go and he was ready to bang right there and then. As anyone would be if you were accosted by like a dude wearing nail varnish screaming racial slurs into your face. Of course the tensions were high, the emotions were all over the place, so he wasn't going to back out then. Chael is alluding to the fact that 10 minutes later, when the dust started to settle and he realised that there was actually going to be a title fight, he didn't want them to think rationally, he didn't want them to think critically, he didn't want them to evaluate the situation and actually think about the process of turning around 6-7 weeks, maybe take a week off after just coming out of a camp and trying to get back in there. So the idea of giving yourself the best chance against the people's champion, against the best champion who's ever done it, the guy who's bigger than Conor McGregor. So there's going to be no premeditated thought or preparation put into this. You're just going to say, yeah, I'm going to fight him, and then you got to go through with it, right? Doesn't matter whether you have an injury, doesn't matter whether you just came off an 8-week camp, doesn't matter whether you can make the next camp. It just seems to be that Israel won that interaction. And if we jump to a second video from Chael, he says this.
Izzy beat du Plessis. Period.
Period. Okay.
He set a date. He agreed to show up. He continued on. Du Plessis isn't showing up.
Okay, so this is like the second video. I believe there's probably 3 to 4 videos. 2 of them are him frothing at the mouth at the idea of Izzy being so unbelievably powerful and brilliant and awesome and cool. Right? That's fine. And he's not the only one as well, because if we jump over here, you can see this.
Izzy has been the best champ UFC's ever seen. The amount of times he has fought consistently as a champion in the UFC is fucking legendary.
Do you think it's blown up?
I want to pause it right there just for the plaudits that are being thrown at him from Sugar Sean O'Malley, from Chael Sonnen, from a number of different people that are calling him the greatest champion because he shows up in fights. Let me pose this question to you. Like Chael would say it. It's not me saying it. I'm just saying it for you. Let me pose this question to you. How interesting are these fights? How legendary are these fights? How are these fights going to be remembered in terms of being all-time classic fights or all-time classic performances? When I think of Izzy's highlights, I think about fighting through the adversity with Kelvin Gastelum. I think about him coming back after losing to Pereira, getting sparked out cold, being in the process of getting sparked out and throwing the most feminine punch of all time, where he's kind of backing back, he's got that look in his face like he's about to start roaring crying, and then he throws just like a little open-hander slap, just like he was swatting a fly or something, and Pereira went down like a fucking wet shit. They're the highlights of his career. What about all the other fights? What about the Marvin Vettori, the Paulo Costas, the Yoel Romeros, the Jared Cannoniers? Are they classics? Are they Hall of Fame fighters? Are they Fight of the Year contenders? I don't think so. So subjectively, looking at this situation, after Chael Sonnen pretty much accuses Dricus of faking injury because he wanted to know what the injury was. We don't know what it was. You were all ready to fight 5 minutes ago, then you had to stare down with Israel Adesanya, and now you're not ready to fight anymore because Israel is so big, strong and tough, right? Cool. We get that narrative coming from Chael's side. We get the narrative coming from Sean O'Malley that this is the best champion that the UFC has ever seen. Okay, he's so brilliant and great. We understand it, and he has terrified Dricus du Plessis into pulling out of the fight. That's where we are with the narrative so far. What does Sean Strickland say? Sean Strickland was brought in. He was told that he was going to fight Israel Adesanya. That doesn't look like it's going to happen according to him. So online last night he was pretty active in terms of chatting to people, and he said a bunch of shit about how unprofessional it was that the UFC couldn't get it together and make this fight happen. I don't know whether it's about money. I don't know whether this fight's actually going to happen. If the rumors are true that this isn't actually going to happen and we're going to get Israel Adesanya, Jared Cannonier 2, well, again we get back to the scenario of watching paint dry. No thanks. So last night, Sean Strickland shared his thoughts on the Dricus du Plessis not being ready for this fight. If I were Dricus, and even if the money was right, I'd say no. Interesting. He's technically next in line, and if he wins, the money will be 10 times better than what they will offer him now. If he loses, he's years away from a rematch. And again, this all makes sense, 100%, coming from a fighter that's top level, that's pretty much been offered the co-main event here against Israel. He's saying it like it should be said. There's absolutely no benefit to rushing into this fight. Absolutely none. Someone responds to him here and they say, high risk, high reward. Strickland responds to them. He says, there is no reward for him taking the risk. Maybe if the UFC guarantees a rematch, but that would be ridiculous for a challenger and would make the division stagnant. I just feel like Sean Strickland actually gets it with this whole scenario. And I feel that for whatever reason, Chael just doesn't get it. Is it favoritism? Is it subjectivity, especially towards a fighter that you like? Fine, we're all entitled to do that, 100%. But it has sparked article after article of Chael Sonnen explains how the UFC champion Israel Adesanya beat Dricus du Plessis. And he's talking about the stare down, and he's alluding to the fact that this stare down changed the trajectory of this fight and of Dricus du Plessis' career, and pretty much called him a coward.
But you have a different mentality. You have a different approach. You have a different code that you live by. Once you say yes, it's a yes. Period.
So, listen, he's saying it right here. Adesanya lives by a different code. Once you say yes, it's a yes. So there's no pragmatism involved in this. No preparation. No idea that someone who has fought, busted his ass against all odds to get where he is in Dricus du Plessis, he doesn't want to give himself the best chance in a title fight against someone who has racially assaulted him, who absolutely hates his guts. So he doesn't want to give himself the best chance in that. And Israel, he's from a different breed of guy. When he says we're ready, he's ready. Okay.
Adesanya turns out to be one of those guys. And what a difference a day can make. When he went face-to-face with Izzy and they had that interview, the next thing du Plessis did is lay the groundwork to not do this match. And up until that point, and prior to that face-to-face, it was yes, 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 yes. Please, 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 me the whole time. There was one glimpse. And now we're seeing that had some fuel added to it.
There was one glimpse of what though? Like, are we actually to believe what Chael is saying here? He is saying that there was one glimpse of Israel Adesanya and the narrative changed and du Plessis didn't want to fight anymore. Is that what he means? Because I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know where he's coming from.
You got to get the matches you can get when you can get them. You got to win the matches you can win when you can win them. Don't think I'll do it tomorrow. Don't think I'll do it down the line.
I'm going to stop it there because with the UFC 293 card in jeopardy now and that main event almost obliterated, and even if it does come to fruition and it's Cannonier, who wants to watch that? I think that the power lies with Dricus du Plessis. He is telling him, you take the fights now. You take the fights that are offered now. You do what you do now. I think that the power is in Dricus du Plessis' hands right now. Because the UFC know that this is the biggest fight. This is the fight to make. Who wants to watch Jared Cannonier? They're thinking about the Strickland fight. In terms of like the logistics of the fight, how entertaining and how much of a blockbuster is that going to be? We know what the Jared Cannonier one is. The biggest fight to make is the Dricus du Plessis. Dricus wants to give himself the best chance possible going forward. He wants to give himself the best camp, the best preparation. He wants to win this fight. He wants to take advantage of the fact that Israel is unhinged and worried. He's literally throwing shit everywhere at the wall and hoping something sticks. The power is with Dricus. Chael is wrong on this occasion, 100%, but he should know better than anyone that the UFC are about making the biggest fights. This fight has more than just the title on the line. This has way more societal weight on it than just this title fight. And I think Dricus right now is in the driving seat. Let me know what you think down below and maybe share out the video, subscribe and like. Cheers.